Alright, and you know how I told you that we have a meeting to go to, and
Yeah.
that's why I got off work and everything?
Yeah.
Well, we're actually going to be driving out to the Wild Horse Cineplex to go see Godzilla vs. King Kong.
I did hear it came out. I saw it came out on my TV.
Yep, so...
It came out today.
Yeah, we're going to go watch it right now.
Yes!
You excited? Yep.
Thank
Love
you,
you.
Dad.
Okay, so who's your favorite, Godzilla or King Kong?
Probably Godzilla. What's yours?
King Kong. Why do you like Godzilla more?
Because he just whipped open a mouth and put fire down its throat and killed it.
Alright, and how was King Kong versus Godzilla?
It's faking metal.
Robservations with Robert, Meyer, Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your archbishop of Banterbury, your chancellor of cheerfulness, your evangelist of the imagination, and, of course, your existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, me, Robert Meyer Burnett. And once again, I'm robcasting at you, imagination connoisseurs. You members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community, this is Robservations episode number 658. Let me tell you, some people, they don't like the positive Rob all the time, or they like the introspective Rob, but ultimately, the Rob that I like best is the Rob that's excited about all the cool shit that we are getting to see and watch and own and experience, the imaginative drugs that we get to like shoot right into our brains because, well, that's what our senses do for us. And when something comes out, look, I mean, if you really think about it, regardless of how you feel about the excellence or what we're getting, the fact that we had a major, almost $200 million Godzilla vs. Kong film open this weekend. Yes, it opened in theaters. I predicted on the John Campea show maybe it could make as much as between $40 to $50 million. I did not go under 50 yesterday, but between 40 and 50. I don't know if we're going to make that. I don't. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. More cinemas open today. We shall see. I'll see how right I am. Am I still the Oracle of Delphi of Hollywood pundits on YouTube? I don't know. We'll see. But then we also got episode 3 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like basically on the same day. Yes, I know Falcon and the Winter Soldier didn't drop till midnight today, or, midnight today. It opened today. And then Godzilla vs. Kong came out 2 days ago. But, I mean, come on. Look what we're getting. And there's all different kinds of things that we're getting. It's amazing. As we saw the excitement of Aiden Wallace, action figure photographer. He's no longer just Aiden or that's Jack Wallace's kid. He's now Aiden Wallace, action figure photographer / imagination connoisseur. Right there before your eyes, you saw the sheer joy of what it means to be an imagination connoisseur when Jack pulls a clandestine op to take his child secretly, without his knowledge, to go see Godzilla versus King Kong. These are memories being made right before your eyes. Remember I said he should probably film it, and he did, and he sent it along. And I am happy to share the love, not just the love between a father and a son, but the love of this entire community. This is what it means to be an imagination connoisseur. Now, I'm not going to get into my thoughts on Godzilla vs. Kong, only to say that I have a very mixed reaction to it. We're going to do it on Whining About Movies tomorrow night. You will be witnesses. Whining About Movies, episode 125. My God. Anyway, I'll tell you what I did watch. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I got to say, folks, I liked it. I liked it a lot. Now, it's interesting. Stubble McShade had some very valid criticisms. Got to give it up to Stubble. I really liked it a lot. And I have to say, what I wanted, I even said, what I wanted from this show was sort of a combination of the buddy cop vibe that you would get in Lethal Weapon or 48 Hours or Midnight Run, something like that. You know, Riggs and Murtaugh, superheroes. And then I wanted it combined with a Tom Clancy-esque, globe-trotting, governmental, high-octane thriller. One of the writers of John Wick wrote today's episode 3. We're now at the halfway point. And I have to say, I mean, what's incredible about these shows, whether it's WandaVision or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, is they're not being judged as if they're television. They're being judged as if they're part of the feature greater Marvel Cinematic Universe. We just expect feature quality. And I've read a lot of people with some criticisms of these episodes. And, you know, to each his own. I would never want to tell you that you're wrong. But I would say this. For me, I thought this episode was awesome. I think this show's been on an upward trajectory. And one of the things that I loved about this episode was, first of all, it starts out with a commercial for a group that is the repatriation of the world. You know, it's a group that's helping people come back from the snap. And there's the detail and the thought that they're putting into the world building. I mean, this show has my favorite kind of world building, where they're building the world and you don't even know they're building the world. I mean, if you pay attention, but the idea that the world is basically a mess. We have no idea where the Avengers are. Certainly Sam is working back. He's back with the government. And, of course, the relationship between Sam and Bucky, I think, is terrific. And they decide they have to go see Zemo, Baron Zemo. And the thing about Sam Wilson, and what I find really interesting about so far, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has sort of shied away from the rest of the world. It's almost as if all of the MCU movies, all 23 of them that we've seen, have taken place. I mean, yes, it's alluded to things like Black Widow's origin, very unpleasant. And we've seen glimpses of it, but we haven't really dealt with the messiness. Hawkeye or Ronin clearly out killing the criminal underworld during the blip. But they haven't really sort of been in your face about it. This episode does. This episode, our heroes straight up are killing dudes. I mean, they're getting taken out. A lot of people die in this episode. This is a very violent episode of the show. Fuck yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. I loved all of that. And they go to Madripoor, and if you're a Wolverine fan, seeing Madripoor brought to life, that was someplace when the Wolverine solo book started. I mean, there was a lot of Madripoor in that. The fact they brought that in there. There's now another mysterious character called the Power Broker. We were introduced to Sharon Carter, comes back to the Marvel Universe after being on the run after Civil War. Really interesting stuff. I mean, I really enjoyed what was going on. Now, if this were a television show, just a network show, or even a streaming, I mean, it is a streaming show, but if it didn't have any connection to the greater MCU, I would say this is a pretty epic. We're getting some epic filmmaking here. I like the direction. There's a lot of story going on. There's clearly a conspiracy element, like with the super soldier serum. We're learning a little bit more. We're getting a lot of answers. It's almost like it's an onion. We're just peeling off the layers. There's not necessarily a greater mystery, although even that was set up. Our power brokers. Well, we don't know who the power broker is. That's an interesting question. I'll tell you something. Now, just keep in mind, I'm not saying they're doing this. I'm just saying, as I'm watching this, and they're not going to do this, although if they did, it would be amazing. Because, I'll just flat out say it. If the power broker turned out to be Wolverine, because they said he's judge, jury, and executioner, I'd lose my shit. And it would make sense because obviously Wolverine ages slowly. I mean, maybe people have already discussed this. I don't think that it is going to be Wolverine because, well, I don't know why not. But if I was making this show and I had something, the Power Broker or whatever, and mutants haven't been put on the world stage yet, they're still in the shadows, which makes sense to me. Mutants are here. They're just not revealed yet. And if Wolverine turns out to be the Power Broker, I mean, look, it's like saying, oh, Reed Richards. I don't think after WandaVision we should ever speculate that way. But I was sitting there thinking to myself, man, the Power Broker, if the Power Broker was Wolverine, that would be the dopest shit ever. And that's only because of Madripoor, and it's only because of the past association. But I couldn't help myself. I'm like, wouldn't that be cool? I mean, at the end of the day, one of the great things about if you really think about it, one of the great things about being an imagination connoisseur is to my mind, I want smart, thoughtful entertainment that has authorship behind it, where you really feel like the people that are making what you're watching, they have a real grasp on what they're making, and they're taking you on a journey, and you're there for it. And I think that so far, the Falcon and Winter Soldier, the 3 episodes together, it has been grand entertainment. It's been exactly what I've wanted. Is it perfect? Certainly not. You know, there's a lot of things like I think that, like, when they do things like Sam leaving his cell phone on vibrate or something, like, how could you bother doing that? Well, you know, it's not like Sam is like this undercover operative. I mean, he's been a superheroic operative and he's been a military operative, but I think in this case, he's sort of, you know, maybe not at the top of his game or something, but it was kind of interesting. It was kind of amusing. People have said, like Stubble, I think, made mention of that, and should they do that? I'm just thoroughly entertained. Like, I don't expect the Falcon and the Winter Soldier to rock my world. I wanted to see this would be like a good it's a 6-issue miniseries. Like when I read there's so many, that's what I'm looking at this as. It's a really cool side story that has larger ramifications where they're exploring the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And Daniel Bruhl comes back to play Zemo. He's fucking great. And the fact that, you know, he's a Baron. Like, he really is a Baron. He is Baron Zemo. It's like he's royalty. The Sokovian family that he's from, they're rich. You know, he's kind of like the Bruce Wayne of the world in a way. And I love the relationship. I love everything. I mean, obviously, and people complain like, oh, I really would like to have seen, I mean, why'd they have to do the prison break and some kind of a flashback? But, you know, it wasn't. He's explaining the story. I was there for that. I loved it. And I just thought that we got 3 more episodes. I'm sure the action in this, and of course Sharon Carter comes back and kicks ass, and dudes are just straight up killed. Like, lots of people die, and our terrorist organization, the Flag Smashers, they allow hostages to die too. This is a very gray show, and the fact that it's dealing with we've had a lot of people write in letters about racism and things like that. Clearly, this show is resonating. It's doing exactly what I wanted it to do. You know, it is infused with politics. It is infused with superheroics. It has espionage and clandestine work and a grand mystery. You've got people, maybe they're going to introduce a big bad to introduce Wolverine into the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a villain, if they did that, love that. Love it. I don't know if they would. Probably not, but it would still be pretty neat because, you know, Wolverine was not initially part of the X-Men. He was part of the Weapon X program. He was really more Alpha Flight. and so they could absolutely introduce Wolverine, and we know he's a mutant and all that, but he's not an X-Man yet, which I love if they did that. I'm not saying they are. You couldn't help but watch this and think, I wonder if they're gonna, you know, I wonder if they're gonna do that, if they're gonna address that at all, because I just think that wouldn't that be cool? I mean, that's kind of the guiding principle of my life as an imagination connoisseur. When I think about these shows, I'm like, but wouldn't it be cool? I mean, that's it. But wouldn't it be cool? And I don't like it. I don't like when I get entertainment that isn't cool. You know, yeah, we talk about things are metal, man. But ultimately, things that are metal also are cool. Hence the metal nature of them. And there's even people that are bored of me saying that. So I love this show. I'm thoroughly entertained. I think it is grand television. And in a way, I kind of wish that this was a movie because I would watch it. There's a lot of interesting pieces. I don't know where it's going, but it's certainly, I mean, to show the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the world, the fact that you're removed from the Avengers, you're removed from our main characters who are fairly insular when it comes to dealing with the rest of the world. It's not like the Avengers are going around righting wrongs. And when Ronan went off the res and he's, massacring crime bosses across the planet, that was pretty interesting. But now we're seeing these kinds of worlds. I liked the world of Madripoor. I liked the place that Sharon Carter resides in. Like the fact that she's not necessarily, she's very she came back from the blip and the world's a mess and she can't go back to the United States, and she has parties around. I mean, she's got the stolen artwork, some of the great artworks of all time, and throws basically major ragers, and you can dance around them. Like, what if someone trips and falls into a priceless Monet or something like that? I mean, there's just, I really did thoroughly enjoy this episode of Falcon the Winter Soldier. And, I had a smile on my face the whole time, and I'm like, kick ass, man. This was good. This was good, solid MCU entertainment. I thought it expands. It has been expanding the universe, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the scenery, the globe-trotting, running around. And then, of course, at the end, they brought it up early on. You set up and pay off. They brought up the fact that Wakanda, if you break Baron Zemo out of jail, there's going to be hell to pay, because King T'Chaka assassinated by Zemo. You think the Wakandans are going to be happy about him out in the world? No. Well, that was dealt with as well. Can't wait to see where it goes. And I love the fact that these shows are allowing the secondary characters, the second-tier characters in all the MCU movies, rise to the top. And what's so great about it is they're making us invested. So these characters, I mean, by the time we're going to spend more time with Falcon and Winter Soldier than we've spent with these characters in multiple movies, and you care about them. So what these shows are doing is elevating these second-tier characters to first-tier characters, which is very, very smart. And I would expect nothing less of Kevin Feige. And, yeah. Love it. Love it. Love it. Now, I don't know if what do you guys think? I've seen it, guys, girls, gentle beings, kind souls, however you identify. I don't mean to slight anyone. What do you guys think? I know a lot of criticisms. I'm always curious as to why. Like, if I like something, I always want to know, why do people not like it? And I'm curious. Interesting article that I wanted to share today about cancel culture inside Hollywood. I've been watching a lot of other channels' videos about, like, Midnight's Edge, other people's videos dealing with still fallout, Kathleen Kennedy, cancel culture, that kind of thing. But there's an interesting article that was in the Hollywood Reporter today about the actual legal ramifications of cancel culture. Like, what happens when somebody comes out and maybe throws an accusation your way, or you do something stupid like talking about how you want to eat your potential lovers, not in the right way, but literally consume them, and you get canceled. Once again, Armie Hammer dropped out of another Broadway show today. I hope that, is he ever going to have a career again? Sharing his fantasies, albeit twisted, but still craziness, rapes. I don't know. It's weird. But what are the legal ramifications? Like, if you're bound under a contract, are there moral clauses? I've always been fascinated. And today in the Hollywood Reporter, Eric Gardner published an article. It was published at 7 a.m. this morning, called Breaking Down the Legal Do's and Don'ts of Hollywood's Cancel Culture. And I'm like, well, this is exactly, because I've been thinking about this for a long time. Like, what are the ramifications? And I know that from my own little altercation, nobody really brought this up, but when I had my run-in with some of the people that I was working with at the Schmodown, this past year, almost a year now, but we didn't get into them and it didn't go that far, but they definitely could have. Then there becomes a legal, like, if you're not being paid for something, and then what are the ramifications? And I've always, because people always ask me about that situation, like, you should sue them, and I'm like, no. But when lots of money, potentially millions of dollars, are at stake, and suddenly your name's getting raked through the mud, and a company wants to disavow any knowledge of you, what recourse do you have? Or how does that work? And I'm fascinated because, look, what do I always say? You don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. And when it comes to things like this, contracts are a big deal. I will no longer work with anybody on anything ever unless we have something on paper. Even if that thing is a little one paragraph, here's what I expect, here's what I want, and we both agree, and that way it doesn't even have to be notarized, just a piece of paper that you both have and you both sign. Don't ever sign one piece of something and give it to somebody. You have 2 copies, better yet have 4 copies, and if you want to be really thorough, have 4 copies, mail one to yourself, and don't open it. Leave it sealed, so you've got the postmark on it, but then you've got your other, and you can always look, when you have that piece of paper that you have signed, whoever you're working with, if things go south, because working on creative projects can get cantankerous and egomaniacal sometimes, you can always point to that piece of paper. It's always a neutral place. You can go, see, look, here's our Switzerland right here. Look, this is what we said. This is the spirit we entered into, and this is the way we should always come back and look on this. This is important. So anyway, so I thought this is really interesting, and this is the only time I've ever seen, like in the entertainment press, how anybody addressing the legality of cancel culture, or, things that are going on. And again, Eric Gardner wrote this. For all the recent noise about the rise of cancel culture, Hollywood has spent no less than 100 years shoring up its ability to distance itself from the most overt sexists, racists, and degenerates among us. After all, the 1921 criminal prosecution of silent movie star Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle for allegedly raping a woman prompted studios to begin inserting morals clauses into contracts, giving employers the right to terminate talent for any behavior that prompts public hatred, contempt, scorn, or ridicule. A few decades later, the entertainment industry had to reckon with the Hollywood blacklist, the result of political pressure to do something about the supposed communist sympathizers within the creative community's ranks that left some unable to work for years. Now, hey, everyone's a Marxist. And few should miss the late 20th century innovation known as the pay or play deal, whereby A-list actors, directors, and producers have their paychecks guaranteed, while studios have greater latitude in terminating star talent in the event they no longer wish to work for them for whatever reason. Plenty of groundwork exists for cancel culture, whether this is a new phenomenon, born of heightened sensitivity and the need for consequences, or a rebranding of a nebulous concept that some formerly called political correctness. That noted, even those who have mastered the cold shoulder should know it's possible to go too far, legally speaking, that is. Before laying down a few cancel culture no-nos, there's one thing the entertainment industry shouldn't fear: violating the First Amendment. That's the part of the Constitution that guards against government censorship. It's strange to see some on the right raise cancel culture hysteria after years arguing that corporations have free speech rights, too. See Citizens United versus the FEC, and espousing the viewpoint that liberty should be extended broadly and triumph over perceived discrimination. Example, bakers who refuse to make cakes for same-sex weddings. Nonetheless, when it comes to running platforms, exercising editorial judgment, or even choosing with whom to associate, courts largely have stayed out of the way. To interfere immodestly and without a compelling government interest would be the free speech outrage. That said, anyone believing Hollywood will never see any legal comeuppance for too eagerly participating in someone's banishment is not being particularly imaginative. There are scenarios and contexts that lend themselves to repercussions. Below is a non-exhaustive list of do's and don'ts for entertainment companies when it comes to cancellation. How companies can avoid cancellation pitfalls. Don't ignore contracts. Probably the easiest way to overstep is to ignore any written obligations. There will sometimes be debate over the scope of those obligations. Example, are there any implicit commitments for a studio to actually distribute an artist's work and not just pay them? Studios, networks, and others often give themselves outs in deals when it comes to moral turpitude, but unilaterally canceling a contract is a pretty quick ticket to court. Ask Amazon, which faced a $68 million suit 2 years ago from Woody Allen after terminating a multi-picture deal amid a flurry of negative #MeToo related publicity. It's settled. Don't fire employees for being vocal about workplace conditions. Most times when an employee crosses a line on social media, that's cause for firing, but not always, especially if an employee is engaged in a concerted effort to improve conditions. Some workplace speech, even if embarrassing or unflattering to the employer, may still constitute protected activity under Section 7 of the National Labor Relations Act, local wage and hour laws, lawful off-duty conduct statutes, or other federal, state, and local laws, says Ian Carlton Schaefer, chair of Loeb & Loeb's New York Employment Group. In those cases, employers are at best limited, if not fully restricted, from taking action against employees. Be careful about speaking to others about why a termination is happening. If there's more than one company involved, a studio and a distributor, for example, and they are collaborating in any way, that may be characterized as a group boycott in a potential antitrust action. As for speaking out publicly about that decision, that certainly will be tempting, especially to mitigate any PR fallout. On the other hand, it opens the risk of a defamation claim. Don't be overly zealous when it comes to hunting for bad information to justify cancellation. Employers should not troll their employees' social media to look for issues, says Apala Chopra, co-chair of O'Melveny's litigant department. That is not productive and could also overreach into an employee's zone of privacy. On the other hand, Chopra adds, employers cannot play ostrich. If a complaint is brought to them, they cannot ignore it. They need to address it. The touchstone is determining how the off-duty conduct impacts the workplace and whether or not it is legally protected. I would say something like Gina Carano. Do be consistent. This is probably the toughest to execute, but being consistent ensures that workplace policies are enforced evenly and fairly, lest charges of bias follow. The last thing any company wants is to invite some discrimination claim that they favored one group over another, whether that's based on gender or racial lines, or on something like political ideology. For critics of cancel culture, conjuring a Seussian image of a corrective society run amok is likely the means toward a political end. But those who wish to counter cultural evils but worry about going too far, if cancellations aren't overly punitive, if corporations aren't colluding and exploiting their power, and if there's consistency, fairness, and due process involved, would cancel culture be less fearsome? If so, perhaps for its critics, it might even become tolerable. Well, I don't know about that, but I did think that this article was interesting, and it's something that, again, as you all know, as someone who works in the entertainment business and who looks to continue to work in the entertainment business, I'm always fascinated that from a production standpoint, as a producer, you have to be mindful of these things because obviously you're working with a wide variety of employees on a project and you have a lot of different skill sets and a lot of different needs. And a great producer anticipates those kinds of needs, but you also have to anticipate what you need to do to keep yourself and your project protected. And I thought this was interesting. It wasn't something that I wasn't like looking to talk about today, but I thought it was an interesting article and worth sharing. And I think there's lessons to be learned and things I certainly hadn't thought of. So I kind of like that. And I enjoyed it. Thought it was good. What do you guys think? Do you like hearing about articles like this? Sometimes I wonder, like, have I only been bringing you articles that I'm interested in? Everyone's like yawning, like, oh, we don't care, because I wouldn't want to do that. This comes from Carl Bruce, this letter, Carl Bruce. Dear Robert, I am new to your brilliant podcast. 2 weeks in, I already learned a lot about comic books, movies, and Star Trek. I'm a teacher in Berlin, Germany, and a film enthusiast, comic book lover, and literature nerd. In one of your videos, you said it's very important that poor people get the best education. I totally agree. My parents flew from a communist country to Germany when they were young. They weren't allowed to read Western comics, books, or to listen to Western music like The Doors. All right. So they taught me that arts are very important, a weapon against suppression, against fascism, and an antidote against anybody who thinks he or she has the truth. As a teacher now, I hope I can spark the fire that they set in me and hand on the love to the arts to my kids, as they did to me. I really love listening to your thoughts because you inspire me to rewatch the Star Trek series, which I loved as a teen, but to which I lost interest in somehow. Guess what? I started to read Isaac Asimov's Foundation books because you spoke about them. All I knew before were his books about robots. And, well, those are good too, though. The Elijah Bailey books like By Jupiter and The Naked Sun, and yeah, man. And I also started to read some of the JLA comics, which you mentioned. I love comics, and I wonder when we're able to see novels like 100 Bullets or Fables turned into movies. You know what? I could see 100 Bullets as a series. Weren't they going to do that? Fables would be great, too. I'd like to say a lot more, but I'm drunk now. So maybe I'll write to you someday a little more if you let me. Oh, please. Let me finish with a big thank you to your meaningful thoughts and interesting opinions. Stay healthy and metal. Big hugs from Berlin, Germany, Carl. Well, Carl, what a delightful first letter. I invite you write in as many things as you want. I'm not drunk myself. I'm not really drinking alcohol, but I mean not at this particular moment. But I really appreciate that you would write me while you're in your cups. Here's to you, sir. Cheers, or Sloncha Proust, right? Proust. Anyway. Thank you for writing in. What a great letter. What I love, it's funny. I love getting first letters. This one is another letter, but it comes from one of our moderators. That's right. Louise X. Sparrow has written in. And by the way, I don't give preferential treatment to the moderators when they write in, but I will read their letters just like everybody else. Louise writes in and says, "Hi, Rob. You've made me chuckle with your interest in my ex," because she's Louise X. Sparrow. And I like that. I mean, maybe she has a past as something. We don't know. Anyway, you've made me chuckle with your interest in my ex, and I thought perhaps you and the Post-Geek Singularity would like to know its origin, especially since it gives me the opportunity to tell you about one of my favorite fantasy series. Terry Pratchett's Discworld spans over 40 books, short stories, and companion works, and as you probably know by now, it is set on a disc that travels through space on the back of 4 elephants, who, in turn, stand on the shell of the great Tuin, the world turtle. Each book is a self-contained fantasy story that humorously and often profoundly parodies our round world, but the characters develop over the course of their novels, creating series within series. I'm going to tell you about the witches, or rather, one witch in particular. Agnes Knit is from a small mountain village, and she's tired of being practical, polite, and plump. She has a feeling that she's supposed to be a witch, but as the local witches appear to be more about medicine than magic, her thoughts eventually turn to the stage. Now, her early experiments with witchcraft had involved selecting a name that sounded cooler. She was a teenager. And she decides that Perdita X Wow, Perdita Durango came out on 4K this week. Perdita X also works for an opera singer. She has an idea in her head of how a Perdita would behave and what a Perdita would think. And occasionally Perdita tells her what she thinks of Agnes too. As events unfold, and no doubt due to the fact that she definitely has a little magic, the two become distinct personalities and can even sing duets. When we choose a name to represent us online, consciously or not, we form an idea of who that person is going to be and what they're going to do. Are we starting a business? Are we going to create art, play games, or maybe start a podcast? We then put a part of ourselves into that identity, and if we use it a lot, while still a part of us, it takes on its own characteristics. We do this to some extent in the real world as well. There's the person we are at work, the one we are with friends and family, and the one in our heads. I know some people only ever use their legal names, maintaining that it is a matter of honesty and not a lack of imagination. But unless we go out to deceive, I think there's a greater honesty in a name we pick to represent our online presence than one selected by others before they could ever know who we are. Ooh, I like that. So the X was my nod to that inner voice, my inner Perdita, who lives in the internet. Or maybe, as Agnes would say, it just stands for someone who has a cool and exciting middle initial. Thank you, Rob, for providing a space for the part of us that are imagination connoisseurs. See you in the chat. Louise X. Sparrow. And then she adds, Discworld provides the same kind of thoughtful commentary that Star Trek used to. It shows you different ways to think about things, makes you empathize with the type of people you might be prejudiced against, like footballers. And if you read it too often, you might also start to think in footnotes. Well, Louise, first of all, you're a fantastic writer, and thank you for writing in. That was a lovely letter. I got to learn something. I got to hear about Discworld, and I've never read, I only have read really Good Omens. That's my exposure to Terry Pratchett, but obviously I loved it. Disappointed in the show, but the book, don't watch the show. If you're interested, read Good Omens, because it is a delightful read. What a great letter. Thank you for writing in, Louise. That was fantastic. Write in more. Write in more. This one comes from Jermaine K. Jermaine K sends in a letter and says, Hi, Rob. Thanks for reading my previous letters. I intended this letter to be about Enterprise and why I think the show gets undeserved grief. Then I watched Robservations 656, and I have to comment on the idea of toxic fans. Your rant was 100% on the money. Fans who are vocal in our criticism aren't being toxic. We're being disappointed consumers who have a vehicle to share that disappointment. Are some people vicious with their reactions? Of course, such is human nature. That doesn't make every criticism invalid or toxic. To me, the problem is a lack of respect for the material. The most dedicated vocal fans can feel the disrespect being thrown at our favorite franchises. I felt it watching Rey be presented as the most powerful Force user ever, with no explanation. The First Order makes no sense, and the entire trilogy renders episodes 1 through 6 meaningless. Rob, I know you feel the disrespect for Star Trek every time you speak about Discovery or Picard. Is 7 of 9 presented in a way that seems respectful of her journey through Voyager? Why are people dropping F-bombs in a Star Trek show? Did the writers or producers ever watch Deep Space Nine? Why do fans have to accept a version of this material that so radically departs from the lore and the history? Does that departure automatically make it good? If a future Batman movie includes a scene where Jim Gordon or Alfred rapes someone, or are Batman fans being toxic when they complain? Trust me, most would lose their minds. Would their vocal rejection be automatically deemed toxic? The whole idea of fans being called toxic is simply a deflection. Instead of acknowledging when a movie or show stinks and blatantly mocks the source material, the fans are called toxic or racist or both. It's a cheap way to avoid criticism, and it's not working. Thanks, and take care. Well, Jermaine, thank you for writing in. You know, I agree with you to a certain extent. the problem is, as we all know, there are racists and sexists and all kinds of ists everywhere. And I think when people are vocal about when you're vocal about things that you don't like, those traits within you that you might not always want to show bubble to the surface. And it's interesting to me because fans, if you love something, in my mind, if you're able to love, hatred for things, hatred towards people or other individuals baffles me. But the bastardization of art, and that's, in my mind, I see what's being done to Star Trek as well, first of all, it's diminished if you look at the actual money spent to the money return, the return on investment. The 3 Star Trek movies that were produced under the auspices of Bad Robot and Skydance did not return on investment the way they should have. So that alone, I mean, if your idea is to make movies that are highly profitable, with the amount of money that you were spending on those movies, I mean, the funny thing about those films is you could have brought the same production value to those films if you had somebody that really knew what they were doing for half the price. Half the price. And the movies would have made the same amount of money. Then you would have had something. Instead of spending $200+ million on Into Darkness, if you made it for 90, and made it like Star Trek was always made, concentrated instead on the human stories, all of that space spectacle and the action that you're blowing your wad on, that necessarily was not Star Trek's strong suit, so why not do that? I mean, why not concentrate on what Star Trek is? You make a good movie, you make the same amount of money, you've spent half, so you're now in profitability. But no, they don't do that. Let's show the Enterprise being destroyed again while the Beastie Boys play or don't play. But yeah, look, I think fans, and I say this including myself, we've never been known for our levels of maturity and our ability to deal with the real world in a correct and adult fashion. So I know that. And I think that the kind of, here's what I don't understand. If you don't like the direction that Star Wars is going in, the personal attacks that have been leveled against Kathleen Kennedy by fans bother me immensely, because Kathleen Kennedy, whether you like what she did with Star Wars or not, has earned your respect. And whenever I say that, people are like, well, yeah, she did produce. Yes, she did produce movies for the last 39 years. The next time you've done something for 39 years, and she's done, if you look at her track record, more often than not, she's done a very good job at what she's done. She demands your respect. And you also have to look beyond just her. You have to think about, and I expect more of fans. You've got to think about Disney corporate structure, what they're interested in. What their overarching, what does Star Wars mean to Disney as a company? And understand that Kathleen Kennedy did make some really great hires, did go after Josh Trank, did go after Gareth Edwards, did go after these people, the Lord Miller, was making some really unique and interesting hires. And if that stuff had worked out, well, then we would be thinking something maybe different. I think, look, the death of Carrie Fisher might have reshaped the Star Wars universe in a significant way. Maybe Colin Trevorrow's Duel of the Fates script, which I still don't understand. Like, why would you get rid of that? I mean, again, what happened is Colin Trevorrow had a feature film come out that basically tanked after Jurassic World. And, of course, they're like, oh, we don't want to hire that guy. Even though my husband's going to produce Jurassic World Dominion anyway. I mean, look, can you blame her? Sure. But not for everything. And, if you're going to hate somebody and go after them and be vocal about them online, I think I would say that I expect all fans to have more of a level of maturity when dealing with these things. Look into her background, and reluctantly you might see that she deserves respect. And maybe ask yourself, wow, with a 39-year track record, why did these Star Wars movies not turn out the way that I wanted them to. And remember, after Force Awakens came out, everyone loved it. I did not, but it made $2 billion. So Force Awakens was a movie that was hugely successful. What we're talking about here is the horrors and the vitriol that is thrown her way is for Last Jedi, which, remember, made $1.3 billion. I know, Rob, I mean, everyone's talking about money, money, money. But as far as Disney is concerned, Force Awakens, $2 billion was an anomaly. That was something that was never going to happen again. It just wasn't. And so look at the return from Star Wars to Empire. But anyway, I go off on this. I think that I think there is toxic behavior in fandom, but I think I stand by my rant when I said a lot of what causes that is the indifference and misunderstanding of the powers that be that are making these things, and they think we'll just eat them up. But we won't. People want, we expect as consumers to get a great quality product for our dollar. And the fact that we are going to be the ones that buy this and play the video games and buy the action figures, we want it to be good. That's what's so painful about all this. I do not like seeing Star Trek that I don't like. It's painful for me. And I hate it. I want to love every Star Trek thing that comes out when I'm given just the just horrific gobbledygook that is Star Trek Discovery. And I look at it and go, what? Did you grow up? Did you watch any movies? Did you read any science fiction books? Do you understand how to tell a story? I mean, I read this stuff and I'm like, where did we get here? Especially because having read the outlines from the original version of Star Trek Discovery and having read, should I say that I have? Well, it's frustrating to read things that made a lot more sense than what they gave us on the screen, and knowing basically we're getting a bunch of gangbang scripts that multiple people work on and get to throw their 2 cents in and make things less good. And Nicholas Meyer's really interesting 3-part Khan miniseries that I reported on, why didn't they make that? Nope, they didn't make that. I don't know why. This comes from Sky, a relatively new letter writer. Sky writes, best greetings, Rob. I just finished episode 3 of Falcon and Winter Soldier. Such a wonderful episode. I won't spoil anything for those that haven't seen it, but the scenes in the bar and at the very end of the episode gave me chills. The scenery from the bridge in the city was amazing. I'm looking forward to revisiting and watching the entire season after it concludes. The last episode in particular felt very cinematic. It did. What are your thoughts on the series so far? Well, you heard them. If it were up to you, who would you choose to become the new Cap? I think both Bucky and Sam are good candidates for different reasons, but I'm interested in your opinions, which may not be limited to those 2 characters. Side note, I saw Godzilla vs. Kong already, but I'm going back for my first 3D viewing so I can bask in the glorious destruction. By the way, King Kong in Hong Kong is a no-brainer. Ha! Have a great day, Sky. You know what, Sam needs to get the shield. Bucky can't. Bucky, his sins are too great. And I think that he knows that, and while he's going to atone for these things, and yes, I know he's been Captain America in the comics, but I think the way the MCU is portrayed and is panning out, I think Sam should be the new Captain America. And again, I don't know if he can throw the shield. That's going to be a little strange. You're going to have to explain that if he does. I always thought that Steve Rogers and Bucky, being super soldiers, they're the only people that could really wield Cap's shield. But we see with U.S. Agent that isn't the case. So, we'll see where it goes. But I think that Sam should wield the shield. And as for what I thought about Captain America and Winter Soldier, the early part of this show, you heard me tell you. I really, really, really enjoyed it. This just comes from John. John writes in and says, Rob, on episode 657, you asked, why can't we discuss it in regards to how Captain America and the Winter Soldier portrayed a current event topic? I think I have an answer for you as to why people object to this. For background, the reason I came to your channel was Star Trek. I have at least some love for each of what I would call classic Star Trek episodes, which ended in 2005. Having seen every episode and every movie of Star Trek up until 2005, I am no stranger to political allegory. In the original series, it was often less subtle than what I've heard described in Captain America and the Winter Soldier. I haven't watched this show and don't really have a desire to watch anything on Disney Plus after the Gina Carano scandal. I'm at this point waiting for my year-long subscription to run out. However, I think there's one key difference between what Star Trek did and the situation here and more generally in pop culture today. Star Trek was often forced to use allegory and metaphor to avert censors. That's true. Standards and practices is what we'd call it. I wasn't alive then, and I know it was censored on some stations, but I believe it likely that the only reason they got away with the Kirk Uhura kiss at the time is that it was not consensual. One of your writers in another letter referenced Deep Space Nine when discussing the Captain America and Winter Soldier controversy, pointing to Far Beyond the Stars and Bada Bing, Bada Bang. I admit Far Beyond the Stars was probably less subtle than the scene we're discussing. It felt more like a TOS episode, but the performance of Avery Brooks is legendary. I want to focus, though, on Bada Bing, Bada Bang, where your letter writer called out the scene where Sisko objects to going into the holodeck based on the racial prejudices at the time. I found this argument ridiculous on first viewing, given the holodeck is a place you can customize to your heart's content. But upon thinking further about it, I think it's actually an efficient parody of those today who would censor things made decades ago based on modern sensibilities. Ira Steven Behr has admitted in interviews that he wrote Sisko's argument to remind the audience that Vegas in 1962 was very white, which is understandable for the audience but frustrating to me in that it breaks Sisko's verisimilitude a bit, as to me he's acting more like someone from the 1990s than 2375. The part of the episode I find most compelling is the argument of Cassidy Yates. Yates tells Sisko, maybe that's the way it is in the real Vegas, but that's not the way it is at Vix. Sisko treats this as a big lie, which, as stated above, is ridiculous given the inherent fantastical nature of the holodeck. Yates retorts, I know that Vic isn't a tonally accurate representation of the way things were, but it isn't meant to be. It shows us the way things could have been, the way they should have been. Sisko treats this as ignoring the past, but Yates says, going to Vix isn't going to make us forget who we are or where we came from. What it does is it reminds us that we're no longer bound by any limitations except the ones we impose on ourselves. Once again, better writing than in 3 seasons of Discovery. I bring up this scene specifically because it exemplifies the best of Star Trek. While I don't find Sisko's argument against Vic compelling, he is factually correct about Vegas in the 60s. However, the writers also provide Yates' point of view that it doesn't really matter, as Vix was never designed as a like-for-like representation of Vegas and more of a vision of the way it could have been. The writers provided an argument and a counter-argument for a very controversial issue, and treated both fairly. This is something that simply isn't being done when it comes to issues like these in today's culture. If you step out of line and don't conform to what is considered acceptable today, a mob descends to try and cancel you and ruin your life. In my opinion, this creates a reaction by many people to anything perceived as politically divisive being put into entertainment. You can't discuss it because if you take the wrong side, you risk your livelihood. I would argue that if Bada Bing, Bada Bang came out today, you would think there would be think pieces about how problematic Yates' argument was. But in reality, you would only have Sisko's point of view unchallenged. Until our culture is in a position again where people can express their views without risking putting food on the table, you will always see a contingent of people express displeasure at seeing certain views being put into entertainment they enjoy. I hope this letter made some modicum of sense, Rob, as it's been something that's on my mind since hearing of this controversy. I just wanted to end it by expressing my general appreciation for you and to the PGS community. While we may often disagree on things other than Star Trek, you manage to do so respectfully, and cultivate a place I want to be, as I have been for a long time now. Respectfully, John. P.S. There was a project on Reddit that upscaled DS9 using AI upscaling technology, and it was put on the web with the first season in 4K and every other in 1080p. if you're interested, feel free to contact me if you need how to torrent, to work a torrent client. Laugh out loud. Yeah, I saw this. I did see the AI. I still think that it's not nearly as good as it would be if you went back to the original negative. But, it's better than nothing. I want to say thank you for a very thoughtful letter. Again, I'm always amazed at the people who put pen to paper. I like to say pen to paper, even though keyboard to electrons, for these shows and the letters. Great letter, John. I really appreciate it. I think you're right. I've always liked to have spirited debate, and especially if you're an imagination connoisseur and you read a lot of science fiction, fantasy, and horror, there's a lot of heady issues that I'd love to discuss with people, maybe even on this show, but I can't. You can't. And it's not. The question is, do I want to do that? Do I want to get into that? I want to keep this mostly a happy, buoyant place. I don't want it to be something that, it already, whenever I get political, it gets acrimonious, and I don't like that. I don't like when it gets acrimonious. I want people to have discussions, and think about these things and ponder them and wonder about them, and that's what I like. That's what I like. Pasty Coppertop writes in and says, "Hello, RMB. I just finished the first book of Dota Dragon's Blood. All right. It was a wonderful show and well done. My anime watching experience has only been with various Gundam stories, so this was a bit different in terms of genre, but I loved it. The characters were great and the story kept me engaged, and I thought the animation was smart. I, being a 3D animator, still enjoyed 2D animation when well done. I sure hope you get a second book." Well, let me just say, if you're out there and you guys are watching Dota, Dragon's Blood, of course, the animated series I worked on in my small way, please like it. Go to the IMDb, give it a high rating. Go to Rotten Tomatoes, give it a rating. And tell your friends, because we will get a second book only if enough people make it possible and show Netflix that, yes, indeed, we want more of this goodness. I don't want a repeat of Marco Polo where it just ended on me. By the way, since you enjoy Gundam, I think you would really enjoy Iron-Blooded Orphans. I've watched Iron-Blooded Orphans. I like Iron-Blooded Orphans, and now there's a new Gundam series coming out that it has an odd name, like someone's name. I keep thinking it's Hamilton. Gundam Hamilton. It's gonna be a musical, but it's not. You've received several letters lately from folks in other countries speaking about shows that have our politics in them. Some feel alienated and some are okay with it. As an American, I feel for both sides. I don't mind politics in shows if it's part of the story, but if it's forced, I kind of sigh. Yes, a Captain America comic, movie, or show is not really that without politics, but the politics were never one-sided or certain. You had no idea what side of the aisle the politicians were. They were just bad, and I like that because I'm not a fan of any side, to be honest. And I hear that some red-headed characters are being canceled and changed. Is that true? If so, we're the unicorns of the world. Thanks again, and keep on keeping on. Yeah, look, Pasty Coppertop, you can't tell. I mean, to me, Captain America is an overtly political character. Winter Soldier was a political movie. Civil War is a political movie. And this series is, in fact, all about politics. Literally all about politics. So why not? Again, I think done in a pretty interesting, well-rounded way. So, I'm all for that. Mario Lopez writes in. Mario says, "Hi, Rob. I signed up yesterday as a member, an Imagination Connoisseur, and to celebrate that, I wanted to write another letter. By the way, for you members, we're having one of our Zoom calls at noon tomorrow. The last one was pretty good. There was like 30 people from all around the world, so you are invited to that. We're going to be doing more of that. And I've been playing with an idea. That I'm curious to hear your feedback on. Now, this might seem insane to everyone, but I was thinking of doing 2 episodes of Robservations 12 hours apart, meaning I would be doing an episode of Robservations at like 2 in the morning. Call it Robservations International, Robservations Planet-wide, I don't know. I've been thinking about it because last weekend I did the Midnight Metal shows, and will there be a Midnight Metal show this weekend? I don't know. Maybe there will. Maybe there won't. Stay tuned. They certainly were fun. But I've been thinking about doing 2 different Robservation shows because I have so many viewers around the world that don't get to watch these shows live. I think it'd be interesting. I don't know how long I could sustain it, but I think I'm going to try it as an experiment, maybe for a month, where I would be literally doing a show between like midnight and 2 a.m. and doing this show as well. See how it works. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting because like when I was doing Midnight Metal, whole different vibe, different audience. It was a lot of fun. So I don't know. But anyway, let me get back to Mario's letter. Mario Lopez. Nowadays, we all talk about the nostalgia that we have to go to the cinema. My friends and I miss that, although we don't miss much the lack of respect that some viewers have for this old ritual. Popcorn, mobile phones, and simple talk in the cinemas took us away for hours with fewer spectators, such as noon or midnight sessions. I recall with grace and sadness 2 videos by Chris Stuckman where he addresses this topic. By the way, I don't know what anybody else thinks. Chris Stuckman. Really like Chris Stuckman. He seems like this just even-keeled guy that I would very much like to sit down and have some beers with or drink some whiskey or whatever, because he seems like he just would be your best friend. But anyway, you can search for Chris Stuckman's videos by A Rant on Annoying Moviegoers, Part 1 and Part 2. But there's another thing that I miss, and for that I blame the trailers, which increasingly show what will happen in a film. As experiences that I like the most in cinema, I remember those in which I did not know what I was going to see, and which comes mostly from my adolescence. I'm talking about Star Wars. I've never seen anything like that. Alien. I thought it was another Star Wars, but oh boy, I was wrong. Predator, which I thought was a simple war movie. And above all, Blade Runner, the movie of my life. In my adulthood, and if I remember correctly, there were only 7 more films that surprised me immensely. Silence of the Lambs, 7, The Usual Suspects, The Sixth Sense, Crash from 2004, Avatar, and Split. Rob, could you say some films that have taken you by surprise? Probably one of these may be on your list. Well, 7 I'd read the script to, and Silence of the Lambs I'd read the novel to, and Usual Suspects I knew the director. The Sixth Sense kind of got me. Avatar I thought blew me away. But in terms of a movie that I have to say, I've talked about it on the show, The Matrix floored me. When I saw The Matrix, I really loved it. Aniara. I've talked a lot about, this is recent, fairly recent, the Swiss, is it Swiss? I think it's from Switzerland. Or no, it's Swedish. Aniara is Swedish. That was a movie that I was like, I didn't really know much about it. And I watched it, it was about a spaceship. So I didn't know where it was going. And I have to say that Aniara was, knowing what was happening, I'm like, I was cringing when I was watching and going, oh my God. And another movie that got in the same vein, The Impossible. I knew it was about the tsunami, the Indonesian tsunami, and it was based on a real true story. But I'm like, when I bought that movie sight unseen because I like the director, and I started watching it like at 1 a.m. And I started watching it, and I literally, like, when the tsunami came, I was completely clenched up, and I had no idea what a visceral reaction I was going to have to that movie. No idea. And it's just, wow. So those are some movies. There were so many movies when I was a kid, like you said, Alien, Star Wars, Blade Runner, even like things like Conan the Barbarian, because you'd see things that you wouldn't see. Dawn of the Dead. Even though I read that book, I was still blown away by it. But yeah, I'm going to check out Chris Stuckman's video, A Rant on Annoying Moviegoers, Part 1 and Part 2. So thanks for writing in about this. Yeah, I don't understand, people who go to the movies and want to talk, and it's, I don't know. So yeah, I don't, yeah. Keith O'Neill writes in. Keith O'Neill says, "Hey Rob, as I've watched your show the past couple years, I couldn't help but notice the fine collection of Marvel and DC hardcover trades in the background. That got me wondering, what is the comic book story that made you a comic book fan? Was it one particular issue of a series, run by a creative team, or something else? For me, it's the story Kingdom Come. I liked comic books before I got the story in trade paperback one fateful day in 2002. But after reading this story, masterfully written by Mark Waid, who I've had the chance to meet at a convention a few years back, nice guy, and beautifully painted by Alex Ross, I found a new appreciation for the medium. The best way I can describe reading this story, it was like listening to Led Zeppelin for the first time. They were doing things I didn't think possible in comics. I was one person before opening the first page, and I was a completely different man by the time I was done. Anyone listening to this, if you've never read it, go out to your local comic book shop or a Barnes & Noble and buy it. You won't regret it. Anyway, enough about me, Rob. What's the comic that made you love comic books? Thanks, Keith. Well, Keith, what a great letter. First of all, I love Kingdom Come. As a DC fan, I would highly recommend. I can never reach. I got to make it so my comic books are once again accessible to me. There's so much crap on these shelves. I can't even get to anything. The Robservations is the Robservatory is discombobulated. I will tell you, like as a kid, I loved all comics, superhero comics. But the comic that made me start reading comics again, and I've told this story before, is Camelot 3000. Camelot 3000 was a DC direct sale book, meaning it was only sold in comic book stores. And it was right when it was being printed on Baxter paper, which is a heavy gauge, not a newsprint, but a heavy gauge paper that was white. And so the art was very vibrant. It was written by Mike Barr and gorgeously drawn by Brian Boland. And I was on my paper route, and I was delivering a paper to the Cullen's house. And Robbie Cullen, who was younger than me, but Robbie Cullen was like sitting on his stoop reading Camelot 3004. And I was like, what's that, dude? And I looked at the cover. That was kind of badass. And I looked at it, and I was like, I couldn't believe. I want to say, you know what? I want to find out because I don't know. When did Camelot 3? Let's see. Camelot 3000 publishing date. Let's see. When did this come out? So I can backtrack it. It was published in 82. So that makes sense. I was 14 maybe when I saw it. And when I looked at it, the artwork, and you could tell that it was a lot more sophisticated than the comics I'd ever seen, because I'd only seen comics on spindle racks. I'd not seen direct sale books, and nor did I know much about the direct sale market, because I really didn't go back into comic books. But man, I was hooked after that. I read that issue, and I think I went to the comic book store the next day to get the other three that preceded it, and I was blown away, and that's what I started. I got sucked in, and I realized, oh, the comic books come out once a week. So, I would get on the bus, and I would take the bus to downtown Seattle from where I lived. I live in a city called Mercer Island that's on an island right next to Seattle in the middle of Lake Washington. So I would take two buses and go downtown. I would go to Golden Age Collectibles and at the Pike Place Market and Time Travelers, and I would buy comics. And I got sucked in. I mean, back then the comics were so different and diverse. Howard Chaykin's American Flag, I found and loved that. Pacific Comics was publishing Alien Worlds and Twisted Tales, which were an anthology of sci-fi and horror. And I just started going, and that was before the 80s comic boom was just starting. Baxter versions of Teen Titans and Legion of Superheroes, which I wasn't reading. X-Men. I got back, and so I really got in. Even like the Vigilante spinoff from. I'm gonna get all my Vigilantes because who cares? I'm gonna get them all hardcover. I'm bound in hardcover because there's only 50 issues, and I'm just gonna take them all so I have them all bound because no one else is gonna collect them. But I'll collect my own. But so I just started reading comics. And I loved it. I loved how the wildly different kinds of stories, not just superhero stories, but all kinds of stories. Frank Miller's Ronin. Like, I remember getting Ronin going, this was a little murky, but I loved it. Loved the art, and it was just so It was just the same thing. It was all kind of the same. I mean, I'm sure it was my age. I was getting into all of these different kinds of things. I was really into Europop, Depeche Mode, The Cure, New Order. So I was discovering all this new music while I was discovering comics and new movies and everything. It all kind of worked together. But that's what it was. It was Camelot 3000, issue number 4. And you can get the series. And what is Camelot 3000 about? It's the retelling of the Arthurian mythos. King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table must repel an alien invasion of the earth. But they do some interesting things. Like there's one character, one of the knights is reborn in the body of a woman. And all the people are reincarnated. And so that character, a trans character, really well handled. And I really enjoyed the stories. I just thought Camelot 3000 was great. And Brian Boland's artwork, so gorgeous. So gorgeous. So there you go. But again, what DC was doing, Marvel's, Alex Ross, when Alex Ross came on you look at an Alex Ross painting, nobody mythologizes superheroes like Alex Ross. Nobody. I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible, really. So yeah. Which is cool. This one comes from Brian Knight. Brian Knight says, Robert, if you haven't already discussed the topic of unreadable subtitles in movies and television shows, please discuss this topic. I have lost count the number of movies and television shows which use subtitles to translate foreign languages or simply allow people to follow along with the regular English dialogue. The problem is Hollywood only using white lettering for the text, and if the characters, the background is white, light color shades or a mixed color background, you can't read what's on the screen. I was watching the movie The Mirror Cracked, and Elizabeth Taylor wearing a white negligee with the subtitles turned on. I couldn't read a single word she was saying. The only studios who get it right are the Japanese, who use yellow lettering, but sometimes that doesn't work when the characters are wearing colorful clothes. I know the solution to the problem, a black box with white lettering like the current closed captioning, would fix the problem, but Hollywood would never use it because it would block the view of the film. Never mind, the widescreen settings would have plenty of black area on the screen to fit these subtitles. You know what? I think it's an ongoing problem. I mean, I really like movies. I think it was Man on Fire that had subtitles on the screen, but done in a really interesting way. I love that. I thought that was great. But yeah, I think the problem is it would be very difficult to have you type in the subtitles and then they have a standardization of where they go. And nobody actually ever sits down and watches the entire movie to make sure that, oh, wait, you can't see the subtitles here. And I think a lot of the time on home video I've seen, like you mentioned, the yellow subtitles, or there'll be white subtitles with a yellow outline. That works really well, but I think you're right. And I think the problem is no one wants to spend the kind of money, that kind of meticulous watching out for the subtitles, like, oh, she's wearing a white dress, you can't read the subtitles. That's something that they're probably not going to fix anytime soon, unless you have a filmmaker that's really passionate about it and will make sure that you're taken care of. But yeah, it's an ongoing problem. It has been in my entire life, and I wish it was better, but unfortunately, it is not. It is not. This letter comes from our band man, Black Phillip Alvarez. Banned from the chat, but not banned from our hearts. Black Phillip Alvarez writes, "Greetings, Rob, and my fellow Post-Geek community, back again with another letter. Well, it seems a lot of people as of late have been sending in personal letters about their own lives. I feel it's time I share my own personal life experience. Get the tissues ready, because unless you have no conscience, this will make you cry like a bitch." You know what? I object to that phraseology. I cry, and I'm not a bitch. There's only one bitch in my house, and that's Tallulah. And she is going to be 3 years old in November, and she barks incessantly. But I love her to death. I share this story in a group we have on Facebook. And no, I'm not looking for sympathy. I just felt the need to share another story in my life, as you always say, Rob. I love the movie 50 First Dates. Sure, it's silly and a bit over-exaggerated, but not many people know that my mother also suffers from short-term memory loss due to an accident 24 years ago. She did spend 32 days in a coma and another 5 months in therapy, basically starting her life all over again. At first, I blamed myself for her accident because I had a car accident the day before and I wasn't hurt. I got depressed about it for many years until my own mother told me it was never my fault and things happen for a reason. Anyhow, this movie, 50 First Dates, helped me accept my mother's fate, and that's why I live with her now until this day. I feel as my friends and family here should know and understand this about my life, and why I sacrificed my own job this year to care for my mother. And to this day, I'm now the same age she was when her near-fatal accident happened. Thank you for allowing me to share this story with you, mind folk, and I love you all. So I encourage y'all who have your mother, to this day, either give her a hug and let her know how much you appreciate her love and support and reason, and she's all the reason that you exist right now. Normally, I'm a very private person when it comes to me and my family, yet as part of a community who is caring and accepting of everything regardless of what we've been through, I felt the need to share this story with y'all, as Rob says. We all have a story to tell. All you have to do is listen. So thank you, Rob, and the fellow Post-Geek community for allowing me to share my life story again. Together, we are one. Don't forget to hug your mother. You know what, Black Philip Alvarez? You got me. I'm telling you.
Robert Burnett?
Mom!
Hey, Robert Burnett, what's going on?
You know, well, I'm live doing my show on YouTube, and I just had a very heartfelt letter from a viewer that talked about his mother and a situation that she was in, and he suggested that everyone, no matter who you are, you should always reach out and make sure your mom knows how much you love her. So I figured, you know what? After reading this letter, and I was heartfelt, and I figured I'd give you a call because my viewers have known you. You've been on the show, so I'm calling you live, Mom, on this Friday afternoon to ask you, first of all, to tell you, love you very much. I had a great upbringing. You've made me the imagination connoisseur I am today. And how are you feeling?
Well, I'm doing fine, other than, I've got a torn meniscus knee
I know.
muscle. Other than that, I feel great, and I would love, the weather's beautiful. I'd love to be out on the golf course, and, I walk around the neighborhood, that sort of thing, but everybody's just inside their homes, or they're doing some walking, but they keep their distance because of the virus. Everybody's just being very isolated. It's kind of creepy. But Bunky and Bogey love it because their mama's around all the time, and they just got fed, and now they're upstairs, and they're sleeping. And
Bunky and Bogey would be your cats, Mom, right? The viewers might know. Well, the viewers don't necessarily know. Named after a bogey and a bunker in golf. Yeah.
Exactly. A bogey is a one over par, and a bunker is a sand trap.
Bunker is a sand trap. Now, Mom, it is April 2nd today.
It's April, yes. It's a good month, huh?
Well, in 10 days, Mom, you're going to turn 82 years old. No, 83. Oh, no, 82. You're 82. I'm not going to get one in on you, right?
Listen, as long as I keep celebrating, it's just another number. That's all that really matters.
Well, I think people can tell from your voice you're not the normal 82-year-old woman. You're quite spunky, and I think if people met you, they'd think you're in your 60s.
Though, when you say I'm not normal, when I was growing up, people in their 80s were like, half dead, that sort of thing. But my generation, I have a lot of friends who are 83, 84, and they're still out playing golf. They still run around. People are just keeping themselves in such good shape, and the age number doesn't mean anything anymore, where it used to be. And so I don't, think about, what's the number? I don't even know what number it is. I wake up in the morning and I feel good and get up and do whatever. And I've got older friends who are just as active as I am, and mentally as good as I am, and life is just good. I don't even think about it. And if you're 95, like I think, your grandfather was 97 years old when he left us.
And he worked out every day.
He worked out every day, and he kept himself very busy, and he played golf until until the very end too. I mean,
right.
It was wonderful. So,
no, I mean he went shopping at he went shopping at Brooks Brothers the day before he died, and he bought, if you remember, a bunch of new boxer shorts and undershirts, t-shirts, and they were stacked on that thing on the foot of his bed.
Right. You had to take it back.
Yeah.
No, we gave it away. I think we gave him away.
Yeah, we gave it. But we could have taken it back because he never opened any of it, and it was all individually wrapped.
Yeah.
But he certainly was a testament to living well.
Exactly. So you've just been busy with your show, and this is what's keeping you busy, right?
Yeah. Right now, you and I are talking live to. There's 279 people watching live right now. So, many people probably don't know that occasionally I call people up on the show because I have new subscribers and things like that, random people. But so I'm calling you, Mom, because it's your birthday in a week and a half.
A week and a half. Well, let's see. Today is the Friday.
It's the 2nd, so it's April 11th.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so 7, 8, 9 more days, and I'm going to be 39, right?
39, sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Listen, like I say, as long as we can keep celebrating and we, are still okay, that's the most important thing. I just wish I was in top physical condition and I could be out playing golf. I think I've talked to you, I've told you that I've walked with some of my, my lady friends that I play golf with, like on Saturdays, that sort of stuff. So at least out on the golf course, but I can't twist and turn. So
do you go down to the club and walk?
Yeah.
Oh, so you go down to Glendale and do you walk 18 holes?
No.
Oh, okay.
I walked 6 holes basically because that's back by the clubhouse, and that's pretty much it. Actually, I think I might have walked 9 last week. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow, which is Saturday, right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow, Saturday, and I'll go down, and my group, they start teeing off at 10:30. There's like 3 groups. There's four people in each group, so there's like 12 of us. And I'll go down and I'll walk 9 holes with the group, and I tend the flag. I'm like the caddy, but I don't caddy. But I tend the flag, and I just, that's my exercise. But I can't twist and turn just because the knee won't allow me to do it, unfortunately.
Do you heckle?
I do all my exercises.
Do you heckle your friends or give them shit when they play terribly?
No.
You're just always encouraging?
Yes, because I know all about golf, and you look at the professionals. You can have a professional that'll shoot a 68 one day and a 76 the next day. Golf is just a perfect game, and you just can't always be perfect every day. So I sympathize with them when they're not doing as well as I know they can, and then the days that everything just goes right, you want to stay out there until you can't swing anymore, because the next time you come out, it's not going to be like that. It's just, that's the kind of game it is. So, but anyway, so I'm looking forward to that. But I do my exercises and everything, but I can't twist and turn. That's the problem. So
yeah.
I can't play golf, but I do walk and that sort of stuff. But life is kind of, it's gotten kind of boring for me. What can I say? So I watch my General Hospital. That's my big deal from 2 to 3 in the afternoon.
I guess this would be your 54. You said you started watching it. You've been watching it for 55 years, right?
Ever since when you guys were, yeah, exactly.
Yep. There you go. So I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question. My friend Dieter Bastian, who I do another show with on Sundays, wants to know if you know that Godzilla versus King Kong opened this week, and are you excited to perhaps see Godzilla versus King Kong?
I've seen it in the paper. I see that. I'm not real big on all that stuff. Godzilla and King Kong.
You don't like giant monsters battling in our cities?
Well, I watch it, but it's nothing that I'm really, mad about. Let's put it that way.
But you would have taken me to it if I was 13, and you would have sat next to me while we watched it together.
Well, absolutely. If that's what you wanted to do, of course I would have taken you.
Yeah.
Yes. But if I chose, I would not choose myself to go. Let's put it that way. I think it's more of a younger generation. It's not my generation, and we don't. When I talk to my friends, we don't talk about that.
Well, let me ask you, if you were gonna watch any movie, like what's your favorite movie of all time? Do you have one?
Oh, my favorite movie of all times. Oh my gosh. Oh God, I can't think of it. I can't think.
Well, that's okay. I know I'm
can't
putting
tell
you on the spot. I'm putting this, but that's okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I have to do some research on that. Yeah.
Well,
Sorry
listen,
about that.
I have to go do the rest of my show, Mom. But I want to call you because
Listen, I love talking to you, and just keep me posted, and just stay healthy. And I love you, and call me anytime you want, and we will chit chat. Yes, and if something exciting happens, so let me know. Okay.
I will do that.
Okay. Love you.
Love you too. Bye, Mom.
Okay. Bye bye.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks to Black Phillip Alvarez. Once again, Nancy Burnett makes a guest appearance on this show. I can't believe she's going to be 82 years old, to be honest. That it blows me away. Every time I talk to her, I'm like, how she sounds like my mother has always sounded like that on the phone. Like her voice, some people, oh, hi, Bob. No, my mom has sounded exactly the same her entire life. I don't know how she does it. It's crazy. I'll be dead before I inherit anything from that woman, let me tell you. But that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So yeah, well, let's see what you guys are saying. What are you saying now? I don't even know. Let's go back and check it out. Let's see, Dakota. There we are. There we go. This looks where we're going to be here. So Dakota sends in a tip and says, when actors arrive in Hollywood dreaming of a big movie or TV role, but there is a flip side to that coin, just look at TV commercials. Imagine getting the Mayhem Allstate gig, or do you remember the dude you are getting, the Dell guy? Gigs like that are good. Yeah, I mean, look, I think being a pitch person and getting fame and fortune as a pitch person can be a good thing for you. It can absolutely lead to other things, or if you could be pigeonholed, because then casting directors and maybe filmmakers don't know if you can move past that for audiences if they too closely identify you as one of those things. Maybe it's not such a good thing, but hey, when you're acting, to me, when you come to Hollywood, a gig is a gig. And hey, national commercials can be very lucrative, especially if you become a pitch person that is an ongoing pitch person that's going to be used for a long time, which could be great. Pasty Coppertop became a member. Well, thank you, Pasty Coppertop. Remember, tomorrow at noon Pacific time, we will have another members-only Zoom call with all of you, which I really, really like. The last one was a lot of fun. So that's cool. Maybe Willow will come. We've only seen Willow once, but I'd love her to come again. Willow says, I know you've discussed this several weeks ago, but after the latest episode from Falcon and Winter Soldier, do you think we might get a final appearance from Chad Boseman as King T'Challa? I never thought about that. I mean, they did shoot it a while ago. Wow, that would be... Can you imagine? I've not heard anything to that effect, Willow, but I just had a whoosh, that thing when you realize something, that head to toe thing that happens. I just had one of those when I'm like, oh wow. I mean that at this point that would be a Luke Skywalker level cameo. If at the end, I mean that Baron Zemo had a thing with T'Challa, that would be amazing. Wow. That would be truly amazing. Wow. A Jet Jaguar says, how dare Warner Brothers leave me out of the action? I demand to be in the sequel. Kids love me. I could be bigger than Ant-Man or anyone in the MCU. Rob, use your pull to trend hashtag justice for Jet Jaguar. Don't let Warner Brothers leave me out of the party next time. Well, Jet Jaguar, aren't you only in movies that Megalon appears in? I mean, you're in Godzilla vs. Megalon, right? But look, I'm a fan. Always been a fan of Jet Jaguar. Love your colors, bro. I'm a fan. I don't know anybody. I don't know if I can help you out there, but I'm all for it. If you want a campaign for the next MonsterVerse movie, I don't know if there's going to be one, but I'm behind that campaign. Mr. Subaraya sends in a tip and says, no spoilers, but I miss men in rubber monster costumes and monsters on piano wires. The charm of the old films, the models in old costumes, and a guy in a gorilla suit can't still be beat, though I did enjoy the remake of Godzilla vs. Kong. Sigh. Nice callback on Mr. Subaraya. I have a book about him, and it's great. If you don't have that book, you should get it. It's great. By the way, I don't know why you reminded me of this, but once again, it has come to the time in the show where I'm going to give away. I am going to give away another Blu-ray, a 2-pack, the Blu-ray CD of our short film Skyfighter that I edited and Lucas Kendall directed. It's only a 15-minute short, but as a piece of physical media, it's pretty cool. It comes packaged like a Film Score monthly CD, and it is the Blu-ray of Skyfighter and a separate disc with the 80s throwback score. I'm going to be giving them away every day, even on Let's Get Physical Media, for the next 2 weeks. And I am going to. Here's my question. Here's my question. How many? I have the answer in my mind, but I have to find out. Let's see. This is a good question. I got to make sure. If I have to make sure that I'm getting this right before I ask this question. Okay. How many King Kong movies have there been? How many King Kong movies have there been? So, if anyone knows, I've got the films, and by the way, that is from the period between 1933 and 2021. Anyone got an answer? How many movies with King Kong have there been in? 8, 9, Dieter, no. 6, nope. 7, it's kind of a trick question, actually. Nope. 7, Darth Plato with 9, Ruben Hilbers with 16, no. Oh! Mario Lopez. Mario Lopez gets it with 12. He just gets it under the wire with Robert Conrad. So Mario Lopez, tell my moderators, I need your name, your email address, your address we want it sent to, and your phone number. 12. There have been 12 movies with King Kong. Beginning in 1933, King Kong, Son of Kong in 1933. Both movies. There was King Kong versus Godzilla in 1962. And then the sequel, King Kong Escapes. Those are both kaiju films. That's 4. 5, King Kong. The Dino De Laurentiis King Kong from 1976. King Kong Lives from 10 years later in 1986. The Mighty Kong from June 16th, 1998. Kong, King of Atlantis, which was in 2005. King Kong, Peter Jackson's King Kong, 2005. Kong Return to the Jungle in 2006. That was animated just like King of Atlantis. Kong Skull Island in 2017. And Godzilla vs. Kong. 12 King Kong films produced, 10 American productions, 2 Japanese productions. So, Mario Lopez, you win. I just need to get your, like I said, your address, your phone number, your email. Give it to one of my mods to send to me, and you will have that disc shipped to you direct from the disc manufacturer. Stubble McShave sends in a tip and says, the latest Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode didn't do it for me. I'm happy you liked it. I hope the more interesting character motivations will be more connected to the central plot. I will watch it another time to see if I change my mind. All right? All right. Jeffrey Katzenberg sends in a tip and says, no way the New Gods would work in film form. Jeffrey, what do you know? You started Quibi. Come on. No way the New Gods would work in film form. There's way too much story to tell. How does one condense Jimmy Olsen, the Forever People, Mr. Miracle, and the New Gods tale into one film? You can't. HBO series like Game of Thrones, perhaps. I have spoken. I think it can be done. It's just I haven't really thought about how you would do it, but I think it can. I think it can be done. Jeff Yerke and Mrs. Yerke is here. You just have to pick your story, which you don't have to sit down and tell the entirety of the New Gods. You can just pick and choose. Pick a story about the New Gods and focus on that, and, I think it can be done. So Jeff Yerke says, hi, Rob. Thrilled to report that I'm on the mend. My broke back gets better every day. Yeesh. Mrs. Y continues to care for me like Florence Nightingale. On our PGS diet this week, Fellini. Ooh, nice. If you're on the mend, you want to watch some Fellini. That's some life-affirming stuff. Live long and prosper. The Yerk Man. Van Damage is here. I'm glad you're watching Fellini, dude. Feel better. Get that back. A broken back is nothing to trifle with, obviously. Van Damage says, underrated film, Sweetheart's Double Team with Jean-Claude Van Damme and Mickey Rourke. You know what? I'd have to agree with you there. And Sweetheart brought, another great Chinese director who didn't exactly light up the box office here in America. But interesting. Over-the-top action with lots of fighting, shooting. Jean-Claude Van Damme fighting a tiger, all tightly directed by Hong Kong master Sweetheart. It bombed in theaters, but I love it. I agree with you. I bet, Dieter Bastian would have something to say about it, too. Something tells me Dieter probably loves that film. Paul Gilmore says, hey, Rob, so I'll be entering the beautiful cinematic world of Wong Kar-wai when I receive my Criterion set Monday. Can't wait, as I've only seen Chungking Express. I only wish the Grandmaster original 130-minute cut was included. Which film is your favorite? You know what? I think In the Mood for Love, but I really love Chungking Express and Fallen Angels. But it's Tears Go By. I love Days of Being Wild. But yeah, 2049, I'm really looking forward to going back and revisiting 2049 because I've only seen 2049 once. And I was kind of disappointed because it is kind of a direct sequel. I mean, it's about Tony Leung's character from In the Mood for Love. So we shall see. I'm glad you bought it. You're going to love that box set, man. It's right here. I mean, I just like picking this up. It's just this heavy, beautiful thing. And, I love it so. It's so good. Anyway, I report back and tell me what you think. Andrew R. sends in a tip and says, I've noticed that the writing on Falcon and the Winter Soldier is bringing up social issues without being condescending. I think so, too. Are you familiar with this writing group? Because I feel that they're very talented and are navigating the culture superbly. Well, we had one of the writers who wrote the John Wick franchise writing this week's episode. And I think, I think absolutely I would love to see that happen. And this kind of writing is so good. We're watching it happen. And I agree with you. And I think the writing is really tight on this show. And I love the way they're dealing with real world events. I love the way they're dealing with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm really liking where the whole show is going. And I don't know what's going to happen. I'm really curious to see where they're going to take all this and what it all means. So I think they're very talented. Frankie Gouge says, Shadow, UFO, yes, along with The Last Starfighter are two properties I want rebooted the most. I saw when I was 10 and 50 years later still want more. I agree. I did try and reboot UFO. I did a proposal with Bill Hunt, and ITV, apparently the feedback we got was it relied. Our pitch for UFO is contemporary. It took place in the mid-2020s. And in our pitch, UFO, the original series, which is set in 1980, happened. And we wanted our the world that we were going to, our show was going to take place in was going to extrapolate upon that technology. But our show began in 2025, and UFO actually happened. Shadow existed, but nobody remembers anymore for various reasons, plot machinations. And a lot of people didn't like that. They thought, well, we want a brand new reboot. I'm like, look, if you don't know the original show, it won't matter. We'll fill in the backstory the same way that in Game of Thrones you understand the backstories of like the Mad King, the Targaryens, you understand all that. But the only direct connection that we had is, and I'll tell you this. So since you know UFO, I'll tell you our premise. So our premise was that the alien threat was defeated, and eventually the aliens were gone, so there was really no need for Shadow after a number of years. And there was the final battle, there was a large battle where the aliens made their final push and were beaten back. Sid, people are not going to understand what I'm saying. Sid, the space intruder detector, which was thought destroyed, ended up hiding behind the moon, and it was damaged, and it's been there ever since. Everything works, but no one's listening for it anymore. And Sid starts getting information that that the aliens are coming again, but no one can hear. So that's the only character, literally. There's other connections to characters, and there's a few others that we bring back, but that's all I'm going to say about it, because I think it could still be. I think our take on UFO is really good, if I do say so myself. So, love to see it happen. I love UFO. I mean, it's one of my favorite things, and still to this day, I love it. If I could license any property, I mean, you've got other people licensing all the Jerry Anderson stuff. I wish Big Chief would license UFO. They did make a Lieutenant Gay Ellis figure, but I really wish that they would license UFO and do like Ed Straker and Paul Foster and the Interceptor pilots, and it'd be great. Because then maybe Jazz Inc. would make a 1-to-1 scale Interceptor. Richard Crump sends in a tip and says, "Hey Rob, I'm a new and proud Post-Geek Singularity member of your community. I'm looking forward to the Zoom call tomorrow. Was I supposed to receive a link for the call? Not yet. I searched my inbox. I can't wait to geek out with a fellow former resident of the Emerald City. Well, Richard, be sure to announce yourself. Come on down. We're going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be a blast. Absolutely. Raygun Media. My friend Raygun Media is here, and his lovely Mrs. Raygun, Jillian, who's, by the way, she's hot too. So congratulations on that. Happy birthday to her. My eternal partner and love on this crazy trek through the future past. XOOX. Well, isn't that nice? That's you're a very talented man, and you're a very lucky man. So congratulations to you two crazy kids. You're in Florida, so you can do anything. You can go out to have a nice meal. Congratulations to both of you. By the way, Raygun Media won the movie poster competition for the first Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival that has not been forgotten about, just so you all know. Just took a little bit of think of it as a blip. Like Thanos snapped his fingers for 3 months and it's coming back, which it is. So congratulations, that's great. Please give her my best, and all of every Post-Geek Singularity member wishes you the best. Justin Jorgensen says, random Transformers fact. In an interview, Spielberg said that during Transformers 07, he had a lot of power given to him by Michael Bay as a producer, and he actually had a lot of say, and he and Bay worked very closely to craft that film. I believe that. I mean, there's definitely a boy in his car sensibility going on there. I could see that. I think that's why there's a feeling of wonder when you're seeing these giant creatures for the first time. Beautiful movie for me, and I'll always hold it close. Only the first. Thanks for everything you do, Rob. Well, Justin, I agree. I like the first Transformers. The only thing that it doesn't work for me, I mean, yeah, okay, the male gaze and the way Megan Fox is shot, but I don't have a problem with that. But I think the only problem that I had with Transformers was the end. The battle at the end is incomprehensible. And while it's cool, I really would like to have seen a lot of I would like to have seen more I don't know, that battle to be more choreographed, more storyboarded, shot with intent, rather than just let's shoot some mayhem with 8 cameras or 10 and figure it out in post. That's the only thing that I would like to see. Guy from King's Highway. Does that mean isn't King's Highway on Oahu? Is that where you are? Guy from King's Highway sends in a super chat and says he's sad as hell tonight, but taking an edible and going to listen to one of your streams. Well, Guy from King's Highway, I don't know what we could say to make you feel better, but remember, like I always say, there's only one of you in the entire infinitude of the universe, which makes you pretty damn special. I'm sorry you were sad tonight. I can't imagine why. There's a million different things which could make you sad, and I don't expect you to have to tell us, but we are here for you. This community is a very welcoming community, and hopefully can put a smile on your face. And if not, then I'm happy to read. Ash Chowhan's Batman and Robin letter from yesterday. Maybe I'll just put that up in your honor as a short take, and I guarantee you it'll put a smile on your face. Claudius says, introduce Wolverine on Disney Plus. Come on, man. Start Wolverine's MCU story arc as a Mr. Sinister type villain. No, Rob. The Canadian government must send Weapon X after the Hulk as the Banner Hulk fight the Wendigo on the streets of Ottawa. That could happen. You could do that. I'm just saying it would be a cameo role. It doesn't have to be the end-all, be-all. I know they're not going to introduce Wolverine, but it is Madripoor. But yeah, you do have to have the Hulk and the Banner Hulk and Wolverine fight Wendigo. You got to do that. I mean, why not? I think it'd be great. But when are we going to get the X-Men? I don't know. I wouldn't mind. Look, Wolverine's had a very long life. And in the movies, it's a little different. I mean, he was given his adamantium, but he's been a mutant for a long, long time. So maybe he's just on Madripoor right now doing what he does, and he hasn't even been part of the Weapon X program yet. He hasn't been recruited. He's been living a life of skullduggery out there on Madripoor. I mean, you never know. You never know. But you're right. I mean, I don't think they're going to introduce Wolverine on a TV show. Although it'd be kind of cool if they did. I do think I could see Chad Boseman coming back, though. That'd be the most. I mean, there wouldn't be a dry eye in the house. Claudia says, Monsieur Robert, I would love to see Zack Snyder's style art direction when we're introduced to the Hand. I want to finally see Frank Miller-style battles between Wolverine, Daredevil, Elektra, and the Hand. Well, that's kind of what I'm hoping that we're going to get from Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu. I want to see epic battles. I'd love to see the Hand in Shang-Chi. I don't know anything. We haven't seen anything. I don't know why Shang-Chi's been moved from July to September. I guess we'll get closer to Black Widow. We haven't seen anything, nothing from Shang-Chi or the Eternals, nothing, and it's a bummer. It's a bummer. I want to see. I am with you. I would love to see epic ninja battles, and done right. I think it'd be great. Alexander Wilson says, knowing your work on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series, I found out that Michael Franzi's father, who's a mafia legend, financed the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Well, I'll tell you, there was a lot of unsavory characters, especially in the 70s when the first Texas Chainsaw was made, financing films because it was a way to park their cash. And there was a lot of people who took that kind of money. I mean, it wasn't just porn the mafia got into. And, I've often said, jokingly, of course, I mean, I would love to I watch Ozark, and I'm thinking, okay, they're laundering money. I wish I could find some really great cartel that would let me launder their money through movie productions. I'd get to make my movies. They could launder their money. And in the process, maybe they will make a movie they'll like, and I won't get my head cut off. So, making movies is tough. You got to get financing somewhere. So, would I not take blood money to make a movie? I don't know. But I think if the Mafia was going to support any movie, by the way, they must have done very well, because that was a huge, huge hit on like the drive-in circuit. I'm sure if they were willing to finance a movie like Texas Chainsaw, they probably already had come out of porn And I'll bet they did better on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre than they did with porn films. So I don't know. I mean, it's probably not ideal to be in a partnership with the mob because they might not like what you're doing or saying, but it still could be. At least it's a valid form of financing. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle beings, kind souls from across the 28 known galaxies, I want to thank you all for being here for Robservations episode number 658. As I said, who knows if there's going to be a midnight metal show? And tell me what you think. What if I did 2 Robservations, one at this time and one at like 2 in the morning for our European friends so everybody could participate live? Would that be something anybody would be interested in? I do not know, but maybe they would be. Who can say? I want to thank everybody for generously supporting this channel through super chats and tips, and also the people that write letters. It doesn't cost anything. You can go to the Burnettwork.net website, which is the companion place to the Burnettwork on YouTube. You can send us letters there. You can have feedback, all different kinds of things. So please do that. And I want to thank my moderating staff. I want to thank the Richard, well, starting with Mike Bodden, of course, and the Richard. And Justin Jorgensen, Bunyan Snipe, the Richards here. Louise X was here. Great letter, Louise. Thanks for writing in. I know she's still here. Louise X Barrow's still here. Great letter. And thanks for listening to my mom. And I think I got everybody. But I want to thank my moderators, who are the best moderators in the business. And yeah. I will be back, of course, for Robservation episode number, oh my God, are we already on 659? Also, if you want to check out the satanic playlist that's being done, and yes, it is a work in progress, let me put the link to the Spotify satanic playlist. I mean, everyone's like, I can't put every single song about the devil. Already people are like, can you cut this playlist down? I'm like, no. No, I can't. I can't. So here is, I'll put this in, Robservations episode 666, a satanic musical salute to pop culture's greatest antagonist. You can go right here and read it or listen to it. It starts with Ella Fitzgerald. How cool is that? So there you go. All right, everyone. On that note, I'm going to say, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I say to all of you, have a better day.